What's going on, guys? Brandon here, Legacy Group Real Estate Team. We have something fun for you to hear today. Hopefully it's fun. I know it's fun for me. It's an insider's report, but it is how the U.S. financial system works. We've got part one for you here today, and truly can't do all of it because it really doesn't fit all on the board. So next time we might try to fit it all on the board, but it's going to be hard to see. And I'm actually going to try to post a link or a picture of what's going on and what this is and where I got this from. But it took me, believe me, this took me a while to kind of comprehend and figure out. It's purposely very difficult to understand because, I mean, let's be honest, economics is easy. Supply and demand is not complicated, but very smart people out there, people that have our interest, people that don't have our interest, try to make it confusing so that way the public can't understand what's going on. I believe it was Henry Ford that said, if the American population, if the general population understood what was going on and what our financial system looked like and how it operated, he's convinced that by morning there would be a revolution, there'd be civil war in the streets. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when we're going over this. So how our financial system works. Again, we've got some interesting looking things up here. Some amazing artists drew this up. We just paid a lot of money to have a couple people come in here and draw this up for us. So just bear with the brilliance that is this artistry. The beginning, this is how our debt comes into play here. U.S. Treasury creates glorified IOUs, and this is where we get our national debt. And what a glorified IOU is a bond. And so they create bonds. They have a bond and they sell it to the banks. And again, this is where we get our national debt at 20 trillion plus, whatever. It's climbing every single second of every single day. So we're stealing wealth out of the future and trying to pay for things now and increase what we're doing now and stealing wealth from our children, our grandchildren, etc. Just like right now, we didn't ask for all the things that we have now or the things that are going on. We didn't ask the people 100 years ago, 50 years ago to do what they're doing and burden us with the debt that we have. And we're doing the same to our children and grandchildren, etc. So that's where we get our debt. They make glorified IOUs, they're bonds, they sell them to the banks. And the banks take this and they take a cut by selling this. And again, you're gonna see the banks, they're constantly taking a cut along the way every single time. So the banks, they take a cut, they sell these IOUs to the Fed, and it goes over to the Federal Reserve. So we have, again, these IOUs, and they're going to the Fed, make their cut there. The Federal Reserve has a zero balance. There's not money at the Fed. They have a zero balance, and then they write a check back to the banks. So they cut a check out of a checking account that has a zero balance. So again, they're exchanging IOUs. You swap IOUs basically, and in this instance, because of this action happening, and the Federal Reserve that doesn't have anything in the checking account, all of a sudden money comes into existence, or currency comes into existence, and all of a sudden it just springs into action. Currency springs into existence. So again, the U.S. Treasury creates a glorified IOU. It's a bond. So you have a bond saying, hey, we're getting money from you, and we're going to pay you with interest in the future. And this is where we get our national debt. So they have that bond. The banks get their cut, so they get paid there. They get paid selling it to the Federal Reserve that doesn't have any money in it. The Federal Reserve has that zero balance. They create an IOU. Again, they write a check back to them. So they write a check back to the bank, and currency springs into existence. All they're doing is swapping IOUs. Again, bond gets sold to the bank. They sell it to the Federal Reserve. The IOU, or the Federal Reserve, writes a check. They swap IOUs. So they're just exchanging IOU for IOU right here. That's it. And again, I was watching this and I was breaking this down. I was like in slow motion. I was doing it in fast motion, slow motion, rewinding and rewinding. I've been studying this, as you guys know, for years now. And just recently, in the last 6 months or so, I've really understood this process and had it truly make sense to me. And believe me, this is only this is actually probably part 1, 2, 3 here, and again 3 through like step 8 basically will be in later videos, as it says to be continued. But this is where currency springs into existence, and this is where the government spends the money. So these swaps happen, the banks make their money multiple times. And again, at the end, we're going to show you where the banks make more money at the end again. And partly because the Federal Reserve, we don't know for sure who owns the Federal Reserve. And what I mean is, again, it's not U.S. We don't own, it's called the U.S. Federal Reserve, but we don't own it. It's not ours. This is a private entity, and you can go to the Federal Reserve's website. You can see that for yourself. I've went there myself. I've seen it, and it's a private entity. There's private owners. They have a 6% stake. They get a 6% dividend basically every year. So that's another way they get paid. So they're again getting a cut here. The banks are who most likely owns the Fed are the biggest bankers in the world. We used to know who owned the Fed actually, and then through just basically a series of changes, swaps, all kinds of different things going on, we don't know who actually owns the Fed anymore. And so again, they're making their cut here. The banks are most likely they're owned by the biggest central bankers in the world, so they're getting a cut when these things are being swapped as well. So they're and it's a shell game. They're selling it to themselves. These IOUs are swapped, and we're writing with a bad check to pay for that. Currency springs into existence because of that swap. Again, makes sense for what it is, I guess, right? I wish, if we could all just swap IOUs and currency sprang into existence, that'd be amazing, right? It'd be incredible. So you have that. Once that currency springs into existence, the government gets to spend that money. So that's where we get the money, the ability for the government to just go spend money, reckless abandon. So it'll be, again, I'll give you a sneak peek, but I'm guessing you kind of understand this next step of where this is going. But the government goes and is able to spend that money, and they spend it on public works, on war, which is a big one, obviously, and then entitlements. So you have public works. Who knows? It's not as much need to be spent there, or not as much to spend there as it needs to be. And we spend a ton on war, and we spend a ton on entitlements. So things that fortunately unfortunately we spend a ton on, there's being allocated in those 2/3 of places instead of that 1/3, the public works and making roads better and all that kind of stuff. It's not allocated there as much, but those are the big three where they're spent. So that's where that money goes. Money's created and springs into existence, and then goes to the government to be spent. And then what we're going to get into basically is kind of that starting point. Next time we're going to get into that the government getting the money, where does it go, and then basically what happens after that, because eventually it comes to us somehow. So you're going to cry a little bit. So just want to prepare you. You're going to cry a little bit when we go through the rest of it and show you exactly what's going on and when we get our hands on it and what happens. And so bring the tissues next time. But again, just to recap one more time, the Treasury, glorified IOUs, it's a bond. They have a bond. This is where our national debt comes from. It's the interest on the bond that has to be paid back. This is where the debt comes from. They sell it to the bank. So the banks make their cut one of the times they make their cut. So they sell to the Fed for profit. Again, another way they're making profit. So they sell that IOU to the Fed. Bankers own the Fed. Again, so another way they're profiting on it. This has a zero balance. So the Fed does not have money. Again, they have a zero balance. They're writing a check out of their bank account. Again, if you wrote a check out of your bank account with a zero balance, what would happen, right? If I did that, what would happen? So they write it with a zero balance, and all of a sudden, because that swap, those swaps right there, currency springs into existence. And now, voila, we have currency. Currency goes to the government to be spent. So, and then that's where it kind of starts getting even crazier. So if that wasn't crazy enough for you, it gets even crazier. So we look forward to bringing that next time. And again, want to keep these videos somewhat short, that we're not getting too crazy, and they're somewhat consumable. But again, we'll go into these parts next time. I'm going to try to do the rest of it next time, not have to do 3 parts, but we'll go into the government, where it's being spent in the government, and then how it gets to us and how it affects us and where it goes after that. So again, you're gonna like it. Let's just say that you're gonna like it. You probably, I think you want to know it. I know I want to know it, and maybe you don't. I mean, I kind of wonder, or I kind of wish I didn't know it sometimes. But again, we appreciate your guys' time and energy, and we love bringing this stuff to you. This is the kind of stuff that we do day in and day out. This is why, as a business, not only just as a business owner, but a real estate business owner, and the different companies that we have and just what we do for people, I feel it's truly important to understand what's going on when it comes to money and the economy, your finances. It's extremely, extremely important, and because it affects all of us. It affects every single one of us, young, old, your gender, your whatever it is, your race, doesn't matter. It affects every single one of us. This is why I feel that it's so important, and it's just, it is what it is. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your time and your energy more than anything, and watching this, consuming this. We appreciate many of you who have requested. I know we've alluded to this before. Many of you have requested to see this and kind of start seeing this process and how it works. Maybe there will be 3 parts. Maybe I'll do the second half next time, and I'll do maybe it all together at once you've seen it, and then we can draw the whole thing at once. But I appreciate your request and everything you guys are asking us to do. Believe me, we've got a long list of things to do, and but we've got time. So we appreciate you guys a ton, and we look forward to seeing you here again soon, going over part 2 and possibly part 3. And again, hope you guys have an awesome day. Appreciate your time and energy, and we'll talk to you soon.